welcome you to session 3 of our Bible study in the book of Matthew. I've entitled this session as God at Work in the World. The people of Israel were celebrating the feast of Passover, commemorating what God had done in the past. While in the present moment, unknowingly to most, if not all, God was providing the ultimate Passover in the death and resurrection of Jesus. As with the people of God in that generation, ignorance of what God was doing in the current circumstances of life is evident throughout the history of his people. Adam and Eve, Cain, Abel, Seth, the great flood, the Tower of Babel, the call of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joshua and the judges, David, Solomon, and the kings of Israel, the captivity in Babylon, the subjugation of the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans, and especially in the coming of Jesus, the Messiah. It seems that the scriptures verify again and again that the people of God, let alone the people of the world, have had difficulty in knowing what God was currently doing in their lives. The Gospel of Matthew was written based on its contents with the hope that the Jewish readers could indeed recognize what was happening in their generation, the generation that was experiencing the coming of the Messiah and the establishment of the kingdom of heaven on earth. 27 times Matthew would use the word "hear" in his gospel. He would quote Jesus saying, "He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. And who hath ears to hear, let him hear." In recording the first message of Jesus in the Jewish synagogue, Jesus declared that one of the reasons why he came into the world was to make the deaf to be able to hear. When Jesus first sent his disciples to go preach, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is at hand," he told them, "Take no thought how or what ye shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour what ye shall speak. For it is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you." Then he would later state to them, "What ye hear in the ears, that preach ye upon the housetops." Is not Jesus implying that he was sending out disciples that had ears to hear? After speaking of John the Baptist, Jesus stated, "He that hath ears to hear, let him hear." He then added, "But whereunto shall I liken this generation? It is like unto children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows and saying, We have piped unto you, and ye have not danced. We have mourned unto you, and ye have not lamented." After commenting that the playmates of the children in the markets were not dancing nor lamenting, even though the music was playing, implying they were not hearing, Jesus said, "For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, He hath a devil. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, Behold, a man gluttonous and a winebibber, a friend of publicans and sinners." It seems excuses were easily being made by those who could not hear what John the Baptist or Jesus was saying. As Jesus would later say, "Having ears to hear, they hear not." Jesus then closed this long passage to those who have ears but hear not with, "But wisdom is justified of her children." In other words, look at your life. What is being currently experienced in the moment? The children. What is being produced reveals who the Father is. Being critical, angry, and hateful. All characteristics of those who were opposing Jesus were revealed to be the children of their father. In the words of Jesus, the children of the devil. They were children of the activity of the mind, throwing railing accusations against the serenity of their soul by being critical of what God was producing. Angry on the inside will always produce anger on the outside. As one of the early followers of Jesus said, "From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence even of your lust that war in your members?" The mystery of having ears and yet not hearing that which should be heard is recorded by Matthew when he included in his gospel the teaching of Jesus on the use of parables. After several parables, all on the kingdom of heaven, the disciples of Jesus came and said unto him, "Why speakest thou unto them in parables?" The answer that Jesus gave to his disciples is, at first reading, mystifying to most. Many believe Jesus taught in parables so that those to whom he was giving the parables would have a better understanding, could understand easier. However, Jesus told his disciples, "Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given." Again, at first reading, it sounds like God may be indeed showing partiality. However, by the next statement, Jesus revealed what made the difference between those who know and those who do not know. The difference is a hearing ear, as opposed to an ear that does not hear. Jesus said, "For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath." In other words, whosoever has a hearing ear, then more understanding will be given to him as he continually hears. However, the one who has had a hearing ear at one time, just as every man has the light of life, the expression of God within him, he also begins his life with a hearing ear, but begins to lose his hearing by the exercise of his own mind. The attempt to find solutions for the struggles of life with the mind causes the mind not only to lose the ability to learn more of the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but it will also lose the meaning of the understanding it once possessed. Jesus then stated, "Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand." This condition, especially in the organized religious structure of his day, fulfilled a prophecy spoken by Isaiah the prophet. "By hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and shall not perceive. For this people's heart is waxed gross," means to thicken, that is, figuratively, stupefy or render callous. "And their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed." Then Jesus speaks a remarkable statement, especially in the light of the practices of organized religion and its catechetical practices. Jesus states that he spoke in parables, at least at any time, that should see with their eyes and hear with their ears and should understand with their heart and should be converted, to revert, and I should heal, to cure them. With the original meaning of the words converted and heal, the emphasis is on intellectually understanding what he is saying. In other words, Jesus knew that if they could be converted and be healed by seeing with their natural eyes and hearing with their natural ears and understanding with their own understanding, then they could also be persuaded away from Jesus with their eyes, their ears, and their understanding. Someone who is persuaded through his eyes, his ears, and his minds to accept Jesus can also be persuaded to forsake Jesus by another with greater persuasion. Thus, the struggle to accept Jesus or to forsake Jesus depends upon a spiritually hearing ear. This mystery of hearing Jesus is also recorded by the other eyewitness of the life and times of Jesus. John wrote, "Now when he," Jesus, was in Jerusalem at the Passover in the feast day, many believed in his name when they saw the miracles which he did. But then John recorded, Jesus did not commit himself unto them because he knew all men, and needed not that any should testify of men, for he knew what was in man. With the word believed in his name, and the word commit himself unto them, being translated from the same word in the original language, Jesus is saying that he could not believe in the men who were believing in him. The reason why Jesus could not believe in the men who were believing in him was because he knew how they had come to that belief. It was a belief born in their mind by seeing the miracles which he did. In other words, their commitment was based upon their eyes, their ears, their understanding. It was a commitment that would not stand if the physical miracle stopped, or even when the physical miracle becomes a thing of the past. Matthew would record the words of Jesus concerning the eyes of the man that are focused upon Jesus and the ears of the man that are acclimated to the words of Jesus. Jesus said to his disciples who were hearing him, "Blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear." Jesus added, "Verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear and have not heard them." How glorious it is to be able to experience life in the kingdom of heaven and be sheltered from the warped and perverse political and civil powers that reign in the physical world. The heart of the message of Matthew was not to give a historical account of the life of Jesus. It was to reveal to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear how God was at work to bring about the coming of the Messiah and the kingdom of heaven. Eyes that can see and ears that can hear what Matthew is recording in his gospel is blessed indeed. In the second chapter of his gospel, Matthew continued his narrative of what has been called the nativity years of Jesus. He began with, "Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him." To understand the story behind the story of the wise men coming to worship the King of the Jews, there are some questions that need to be raised. Why does Matthew even include in his gospel the story of the three wise men, which is not found in any of the other gospels? Why do they come to Jerusalem when the coming King of the Jews is in Bethlehem? Why did the wise men, when the star came and stood over the young child, the child of which they had traveled from afar to worship, Matthew recorded when they saw the star, which stood over the young child, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Why are they rejoicing when they had not yet entered the house to see the child? Ultimately, what is the event of the wise men from the east coming to worship the King of the Jews, revealing to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear? First, Matthew did record the historical facts that wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him." Although he recorded the fact that wise men came searching the King of the Jews, he does not reveal anything about these wise men. Mystifying to most, the word of the original language that identifies the wise men is magos, meaning Magian, that is, Oriental scientist, by implication, a physician. That word is used in the New Testament a total of 6 times, 4 times by Matthew translated wise men, and 2 times by Luke in Acts. In the book of Acts, Paul, on his first missionary journey, found a certain sorcerer, magos, a false prophet, and Elymas, which was his name, the sorcerer. again, magos. In addition, it is recorded in Acts that a certain man called Simon used sorcery, meaning to practice magic, of which the root word is magos, and bewitched the people. It would seem Matthew is identifying these three men as wise men simply because they were seeking Jesus. He also recorded the gifts of the wise men that were worthy of the coming king of the kingdom of heaven that would reign on earth: gold and frankincense and myrrh. Again, Matthew does not reveal anything about the gifts. Some of the early church followers in the 2nd and 3rd centuries recognized these gifts as symbols, a metaphor to highlight the coming Messiah, the coming King of the Jews. Gold is symbolic of his kingship. Frankincense is symbolic of his divinity. And myrrh is symbolic of his humanity. They would say the gifts proclaim how God came down from heaven to be our king. Gold, the currency of kingship. To be our priest. Frankincense, the incense of priestly functions. To be our atonement. Myrrh, the spice of embalming fluid. Matthew did record the historical facts, but gave us very little information about those historical facts, because more importantly, he is revealing how God was working to bring about those facts. For the Jewish readers to understand that Jesus was the Messiah and that he had come to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth will take more than the mere telling of a historical story. It will take a divine intervention into the thinking processes of the mind of man. Understanding that Jesus was the Messiah and that he had come to establish his kingdom of heaven would come only by divine revelation. This great truth is illustrated in how the three wise men finally found the one of whom they were seeking. In the search of the King of the Jews, the three wise men came first to Jerusalem. Evidently, a star had appeared to them, and from this revelatory event, they understood a king was to be born. Once arriving in the city, they began to inquire, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him." Of course, it did not take long until Herod, the reigning king of Judea, heard of their search and became troubled along with many others in Jerusalem. King Herod gathered the chief priests and scribes of the people and told them to search the Holy Scriptures to find where this Christ was to be born. They returned to Herod to inform him that Micah the prophet had said that in Bethlehem of Judea shall come a governor that shall rule to shepherd his people Israel. Upon hearing their report, Herod did three things. First, he secretly inquired of the wise men the exact date when the star appeared. He then sent them to Bethlehem to search diligently for the young child. Finally, he informed the wise men that when ye have found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him also. When they had received the instructions of the king, they departed for Bethlehem. The implication of the story is that it would take more than searching the scriptures to find Jesus. A person might find the right city by their searching, but to find Jesus, it would take divine intervention. For the wise men, it would take the star to shine on Jesus. Is it any wonder why the wise men, when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy? Getting to the city of which the inhabitants called the city of God, being directed by religious leaders who knew the scriptures, and following the instructions of the political power, was not sufficient for Jesus to be found. It would take divine intervention, the star, for the wise men to find Jesus. It will also take divine intervention for anyone to find Jesus, the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. After many of the crowd which came to Bethlehem to pay their taxes had left the city, the family was able to move into a house for their dwelling. Although it is not known how long they resided in Bethlehem, Herod's demand to know when the star first appeared and his consequential order to kill all the children in Bethlehem from 2 years old and under, the length of their residence in Bethlehem was probably from 1 to 2 years. After the wise men came into the house and presented their gifts before the young child would marry his mother, they departed, but being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they went to their own country another way. Do we have eyes to see and ears to hear what is happening in this giving of the historical events? It is no coincidence for Jesus to be found that it would take both divine intervention to get there and divine inspiration for the journey home. The working of God, which brought about the worship of the coming King of the Jews by the three wise men, can also be seen in the family of Jesus. Matthew recorded that after the wise men had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. Joseph, not his biological father, but the nurturing father of Jesus, receiving inspiration in the dream, arose, took the young child and his mother by night, and departed into Egypt. Again, by divine intervention, the young child with Joseph and Mary escaped the terror that was coming to Bethlehem. They were told to stay in Egypt until the death of Herod. Herod, who had earlier killed 2 of his own sons in fear of them deposing him as king of the Jews, wasted no time in his attempt to crush the coming king of the Jews. When he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coast thereof from 2 years old and under. It has been said, hate and unbridled wrath, armed with an unlawful power, often transport men to the most absurd and unreasonable instance of cruelty. The blood of innocent children was flowing in Bethlehem, and Matthew compared it to the lamentations, the weeping and mourning that occurred in Ramah in the days of Jeremiah. When Nebuzaradan, the captain of the Babylonian army, after he had destroyed Jerusalem, brought all of his prisoners bound in chains to Ramah. The sword and the captivity at Ramah brought much grief to the children of Israel. As in Ramah, and as with Rachel, who died in childbirth with her son being named son of her sorrow, the grief of weeping mothers in Bethlehem would not be comforted from the sorrow of their killed children. When the time had come for the family of the young child to return to Israel, the angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. Even when they approached the land of Judea, once again, Joseph, being warned of God in the dream, he turned aside in the parts of Galilee, because of the danger for his family from the son of Herod. It is as if Matthew wanted the Jewish readers to know that just the historical facts of the birth of Jesus and his journey to Egypt and back was by divine inspiration. For example, Matthew closed the nativity story of Jesus with, And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. With the root of the word Nazar, translated Nazareth, signifying either a branch or the city of Nazareth, and Matthew referring to the prophets, it is probably a reference to Isaiah's prophecy. Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrow and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Matthew added, he shall be called a Nazarene. Considering Matthew's emphasis upon divine intervention and divine revelation, the story behind the historical facts, being called a Nazarene is not so much a reference to being from Nazareth as it is a reflection of the character and disposition of Jesus. In other words, if you're looking for a savior as a bully, powerful, and rich in the world, you will not find him. As Isaiah stated, Jesus the Messiah, the King of the kingdom of heaven, would come into the world despised, rejected, and a man of sorrow, acquainted with grief. Since Jesus would have no beauty of the world that would make him desirable, the Messiah, the Christ, would be revealed only to those who have ears to hear and eyes to see the mysteries of God. Matthew would later record how the Messiah, of whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write, would be revealed. When Philip, one of the first followers of Jesus, found his friend Nathanael and then told him that they found the Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph, Nathanael said, "Can there any good thing come out of Nazareth?" Later, after his eyes saw Jesus and his ears heard him, Nathanael said to Jesus, "Thou art the Son of God, thou art the King of Israel." Having eyes that saw and ears that heard, Nathanael, by divine revelation, knew the Nazarene, despised and rejected by the world, was indeed the Son of God and the King of Israel. Entering the holy city, given directions by religious leaders, and receiving instructions from political power, was not sufficient for the wise men to find Jesus. Just as they had to see the star, and Joseph had to dream the dreams, Nathanael would have to see and to hear Jesus. In fact, every man in every generation will have to see and to hear Jesus to experience the power and the glory of the kingdom of heaven on earth. The kingdom where its participants has found deliverance from the effects of the happenings in the physical world. He is a new creature in Christ and walks by the beat of a different drum. When we face the circumstances of this world in our life, in our time, who are we hearing? Just as the wise men could not find Jesus by getting into the holy city, neither by receiving directions from the religious leaders, nor instructions from the political power. They had to see the star given to them by God. You too will have to see the star of divine revelation to know and to understand the power and the glory of the kingdom of heaven, of which you have the opportunity to experience in this world. I pray that indeed that all of us can live in the power and the glory of the kingdom of heaven, for we have been called to that glory.